Hey guys, welcome to this week's Flearn Pro tutorial. This is a tutorial based on an image that Dave won for our Flearn Pro contest. So congrats Dave, and thanks for everyone who entered. It was a lot of fun, and we're going to be doing something really cool. Today's episode is 100% on putting someone into a new background, making the shadows right, the light right, everything, and we're going to go really in depth and just make sure that you guys have absolutely no questions on how to do this whenever it's time for you to be doing it too. So this is a lot more in depth than any other pro tutorial on putting someone into a new background. And our goal today, and we're going to do it, is to make it perfect. We're going to make this absolutely perfect. It's going to be beautiful, and I can't wait to get started. So let's go ahead and put these together. I'm not able to send over this image because it's an image from istockphoto.com, and that would be illegal, but I will tell you guys where you can download it if you want to download it, or if you want to find your own. That's totally cool too. I'm going to show you guys basically, or let you know how I chose this image and why I chose it. So let's go ahead and grab our move tool, and I'm going to hit shift, click, and drag, and that's going to put this over here. The background image is actually quite a bit smaller than this image. Not a huge deal. We'll just scale this down. You don't really want to scale your background image up. We're going to scale this image down instead. So let's hit Command T to bring the warp. I'm going to hit this chain link up there, and I'm going to just drag on my horizontal. There we go. And the chain link just locks your width and your height, so it doesn't give you any kind of weird aspect ratios. All right, and we'll make her about that size. Let's go ahead and just close this out and hit F for full screen. So this is going to be in here, and it's going to look so awesome. I'm really pumped, and I've actually developed 2 new techniques that I've never, ever done before for this tutorial in learning how to do this very, very well. It's important to me to make these Flearn Pros very good, and I'm super excited about you guys learning this one. So this is what we're doing. Now let's go ahead and just flip this around because we can see our light source is coming from the left. So I'm going to hit Command T, right click, and hit flip horizontal, and that's going to flip our image around. There we go. You can flip your background around either way. It really doesn't matter what you do. You just want to make sure your light source is coming from the same side. And let's go ahead and talk about that for a little bit, because that's probably, there are a couple other things as far as like perspective and things go, but the main thing that you guys want to look for is your the lighting in the background image, and making sure that it matches relatively well with the lighting in the image you're going to be compositing. So we've got a light source on our left, and we can see its shadow on the right. So pretty easy to tell. Light on the left, shadow on the right, which means your light source is coming from the left side. A quick trick you guys can do if you're trying to figure this out, let's just zoom in, is see this shadow on her nose ends right about there. You can actually like draw a line from the tip of her shadow from her nose to the tip of her nose. Maybe it ends about there. It's kind of fuzzy, right? So it's like you just don't know exactly where it ends, but you can draw a line right about there, and that's basically a line directly to your light source. So kind of a cool trick there. It'll show you guys like what direction the light source was shining. So the light was pointing down in that direction. It's a fairly large light source, and we can tell that because the shadows are decently, they're not incredibly bright, but they're not super hard shadows, in other words. So a fairly large light source, and to light a whole person, you kind of do need a large light source. We do have quite a bit of light here on her face. It gets a little bit less light here, and then down here on her dress, it's not really as much light. So that's because her face is a lot closer to the light, and because the light is it's not as big as her whole body. So that's something we need to look for in the other image as well. The other thing we're going to look at here is our shadow levels. So we have our highlights, obviously, but if this was taken like outside in the middle of the night and there was no fill light, this would all be black here. But it's not, meaning that we do have fill light as well. So whether that's light that's just bouncing around inside of the studio, or this photographer used an actual fill light, umbrellas, softbox, and things like that to fill in our shadows, that's an important thing to notice as well, because that's matching the highlights and the shadows in an image. If you can do that well, you can be pretty happy that, or I don't know, you'll just be able to do this. You'll be able to composite if you can match highlights and shadows. That's basically all of it. That's the hard part. So that's what we're looking for, and in this image, that's exactly what I found. A light source that's coming from the side. It's kind of coming in. You can see it's hitting the ground there. That's basically the light that's hitting there. Some of this light here is bouncing up on the walls, and this light here, you can see this light here. It's pretty cool. What happens is the light comes in there and it bounces there, and that's going to hit the ceiling and bounce down. It just bounces all around the place, and that's what fills in shadows and things like that. So light's kind of bouncing around in there, and that's a lot of fun. Now, in this image, we don't have anything backlighting the girl, and in this one we do. There's a backlight here, there's some light going on here, and some light going on there. So we're going to have to account for that in the end image when we composite this in. So that's about our light source, and this is really, just about the only thing that I looked for in this background image. I was looking for something that was relatively interesting and something that had a light source that was relatively consistent with this. It doesn't have to be perfect. We can tweak things, but you want it to be pretty good. The other thing is, you can just kind of see, looking at this, about where the horizon is for our composite and about where the horizon is for the image of our girl here. You want those to be generally about the same. And what I mean by the horizon is basically like if there was no building here and you could just see, like if it was a desert and you could see into infinity, this is where the horizon would be, and above it would be sky and below it would be ground. So if the camera, for instance, were up 3 feet higher and looking down, the horizon would not be here. The horizon might be here or something like that. It would be a completely different photo. And the same thing with her. If the photographer was on a ladder and looking down at her, the horizon would not be here. It would be, it would be up here, or you wouldn't maybe not even be able to see it. So that's important as well, because if you don't get your perspective at least relatively correct, it's just going to look weird. There's no other word for it. It's just going to look weird, and it's not really going to work. So that's another thing that I wanted to keep in mind. So again, not trying to find something where my horizon's like way up here or I can't even see it. It needs to be relatively close to visible for both the images. And that's going to make your job a lot easier whenever you're compositing. And yeah, that's about it as far as choosing our background image. The colors and everything like that, not a big deal. We can change that, and I've got some really great techniques that you guys are going to like for that as well. All right, well, let's go ahead and start off by cutting out our girl. And we're not going to do a whole lot with this red scarf today. I'm going to cut it out, and we're going to extend it on over to the right side. It's just, I don't know. I like the red scarf, but we don't have enough of it really to do much with it unless I was going to redraw a scarf. But to be honest, that's kind of hard, and I don't think it would teach you anything to watch me draw a scarf for an hour. So we're gonna not do that. So let's go ahead and start cutting it out. Now, you don't need like a super expensive studio or anything to do like this sort of shot. It's a seamless backdrop. I used to shoot these in my living room when I lived with my parents. Like literally, you can do this $50 or so. You can get a seamless backdrop. So you can definitely take this image even if you don't have like super expensive lighting and studio and all that stuff. All right, let's go ahead and cut her out. And the great thing about putting someone on a backdrop like this is that you can cut them out pretty easily. We're gonna click on our layer. I'm just gonna make sure it's inside of our document bounds. It is, cool. Because if it was like right here and I selected it out, I wouldn't be able to obviously select at the top. Okay, we're gonna grab our magic wand tool. And my advice here, guys, is I know Photoshop, right? Like I do this for a living. I'm pretty good at Photoshop. And there's no shame in using the magic wand tool, guys. Like really there's not. So don't, I don't know. I think a lot of people get to where like they find out that there are all these more complex ways of making selections and things like that. And they're like, the magic wand tool is generally, it's generally considered like a beginner tool, but if it's the right tool for the job, don't try to overcomplicate it. That's my advice. Like I know how to use the pen tool. I know how to use all those other tools, but right now the magic wand tool is the best tool for the job. And the reason is because it's quick and it does the job how I want it to do it. So, you could use the pen tool and spend the next hour of your life cutting a person out, but in this case, you don't need to. So why would you do that? You get to spend another hour of your life not using a pen tool. So anyway, this is what I would use. I'm not trying to like make something up and be slack here. This is like literally, this is the best tool for the job right now because it's the fastest tool and it does it as good as we need it to do it. Now, if it was the fastest tool and it did a bad job, not the best tool for the job. But in this case, it's both. So that's perfect. All right, and I'm just holding shift and clicking as I clicked around there. And if you want to not select as much, you bring your tolerance down. If you want to select more, you bring your tolerance up. And that's about as easy as it gets there. Cool. And then I'm actually going to wind up cutting out this this red thing too. Let's go ahead and do that because we're not going to use it. So I'm going to just shift click a few times. And we're not going to use it right there anyway. All right. And if you mess up, just hit Command Z or Control Z if you guys are on a PC, and it'll just undo the last one you did. Like if by mess up, if it selects too much or something like that. All right, we'll click right in there. Like see, it's selected there, so I'm gonna hit Command Z and then see if I can reselect that. There we go. Cool, and I'm not too worried about all this stuff, to be honest, because it's a decent selection around her, and that's all I really care about. So we have our background selected, and I actually want her selected. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to inverse my selection. So we're going to go to Select, and we're going to go to Inverse. It's going to flip it around, and then I'm going to hit this Refine Edge key. There we go. And my my view mode here, I have it set to On Layers. And that just helps me see what I'm doing, right? So it's like you could put it like Overlay, or you could put it black on white, but that doesn't really help you. Not nearly as much as this does. Okay. With this Refine Edge, basically the edge is not really that nice right now. You can see it's like pretty nasty, and that's going to happen every time you use the Magic Wand tool, but that's what Refine Edge is for. So we're going to go over here, and I'm going to bring up my feathering and my contrast, and then we're going to shift the edge in a little bit. So let's start by shifting our edge in a little bit, bringing our feathering up, and now we're going to bring up our contrast. The reason I use feathering and contrast together is because it really does a great job of getting rid of all these jaggedy, nasty areas. Because feathering kind of smooths them all out, and then contrast makes everything have a nice edge again, but it's based on the feathering. So it's like, I don't know, it's just kind of cool. It's like the feathering smooths it out, and then the contrast makes the edge nice again. It's good. They make a good team. There we go. And I'm going to just shift that edge in a little bit so you can kind of see the original, the before and the after there. And I'm okay bringing the contrast down a little bit because I don't want my edge to be incredibly sharp. Actually, I want it to be a little bit less sharp than perfect, because I need to match the background photo. And if our edge is like boom, if it's super sharp, you can see how it really doesn't look like the background photo at all. But if it's right around near there, it looks a lot more like the background photo. So we'll hit OK. And that's our selection now. And we can see it is slightly inside the dress. And, if you need it to be absolutely perfect, that's when you take the time to use the pen tool or something like that. But most of the time, your edge does not, as long as your edge is clean and good, whether it includes like a button or something like that, it's not usually that important. That's if you're doing something like this, if you're taking a product shot and it has to represent the product, accurately, then it becomes more important. Okay, we have that selected now. We're going to zoom out, and I'm just going to click on my layer mask. There we go. And because we have a selection active, it loads that selection into your layer mask. Pretty cool. And I'm going to go ahead and just clean this up real quick again. And I'm going to go with my lasso tool. Just select that, and I'm going to fill, because I'm on my layer mask, fill with my foreground color, and the keyboard shortcut for that is Alt-Option-Delete, or Alt-Option backspace if you guys are on if you're on a PC. Right on. And there we go. Let's go ahead and fill that too. This is so cool. I can't wait to show you guys some of these techniques that you're just going to love them. All right, now notice I didn't really try to cut out all the way like directly to the dress, and the reason is because it's not necessary, and I actually don't want to, because like these shadows here, I actually kind of want to use these shadows to my benefit. I mean, the real shadows, right? They're the actual shadows that her dress casts, so it'd be beneficial of me to use those instead of get rid of them. Okay, there we go. Now she's cut out from her background, and she looks huge. And this isn't exactly what we want, obviously, right? So we have to figure out how to put her in this backdrop, and where she needs to be and everything like that. And to be honest, this is very hard. It's really, really hard, because let me just show you guys why. But you're lucky, because I just spent the last 4 hours developing a technique that's going to help you guys out. Make this easier. The reason why it's hard, guys, is, here, let's say like this block from here to here, let's say that's like 8 inches, right? Back here, this block is also like 8 inches, but it's farther away from the camera, so the distance is quite a bit less, right? I mean, it doesn't look like it's 8 inches, but it might be that same big. I'm just guessing based on how big I think this block might be. I don't know, that might be like 2 feet, I have no idea. One thing we do have is a door here, and that is a blessing. Thank you, door. You get a thumbs up. That's my thumbs up there. I'll tell you guys in a little bit why this is awesome that we have a door there. So we have a door, and that's perfect. So it's pretty hard because as we get farther away from the camera, now this is maybe 8 inches or a foot or something like that. So translated to the ground, that means, the difference between like if your subject is standing here or if your subject is standing here, that might be like 2 feet, and 2 feet closer to the camera or farther away from the camera. I'm just going to hit Command J on this and duplicate it so we can just show you guys what I'm talking about. Okay, so our subject here, let's just apply this layer mask. There we go. Our subject, if she's standing here and looks okay, if we move her back like that much, she might look now almost a foot taller, because if she's 2 feet further away from the camera, she needs to get shorter, right? Like, she looks okay size there, but if we put her here, she looks small, right? So that's pretty important. And here, if we move her from here to here, this might only be, in relative terms to our environment, maybe 6 inches. So if someone's 6 inches closer or farther from you, maybe it would only make them look like an inch or half an inch shorter. But the distance from here to here, she looks huge there, right? I mean, she's an absolute giant, and here she doesn't. Like she's starting to look like the right size person. So that's not that far of a distance they're moving, but because everything shrinks because of perspective, it just makes her start to look huge as we go back. So, especially as you go farther away from the camera, like size and scale becomes very, very important. Not only that, but it becomes very, very hard to do. So lucky we have something to fix that. Anyway, that's why it's pretty important, guys. Let's go ahead and delete that out and delete these thumbs up. Okay, we've got our subject, and the next thing I want to do is figure about where I want her to be, and then I'm going to show you guys the cool trick that I developed to put her in the right place. So she is looking decent right here, but she's obviously not the right size or anything like that. But the only thing I really care about right now is her lighting. I just want to make sure that the light on our subject is decent, and I don't know if I'm going to wind up duplicating, or I don't know if I'm going to wind up using any part of her again. So I'm going to duplicate her just because I really don't know what I'm going to wind up doing right here, because it's like I might need some detail back in the original. I might mess it up. You never really know. So anytime where you're about to do something and you're like, oh, I don't know, I don't want to mess things up, just duplicate a layer, and then you have the freedom to mess up whatever you want. Okay, let's go ahead and bring this in, and I'm going to make her a bit smaller. And to be honest, I don't know how big she's supposed to be. Like that's, I want her to look like a regular sized human, but that's, it's hard to do. And the only thing that I really care about here is the placement of these lights. That's what I care about, because these are the lights that are supposed to be lighting her, right? So what I want to do is, if these lights are supposed to be at least beside her, let's just say that they could be coming in from pretty much the side, okay? The side of our model would be something like that. Well, let's put a line in between these guys here, and we'll draw it down. And notice this, I'm not drawing this straight down because we have some perspective distortion here. Like the straight down of this wall actually does something like this, right? So we have to kind of say, okay, I believe you, it does that. We have to follow that, that as well. And it's kind of hard to see on the ground here, but you can definitely see this line here anyway. The tiles all go, at an angle like that. So let's just say we want this to be, I'm trying to follow what would basically be a grid, right? So like this line would basically be parallel to that one. That would be the same camera plane based on our geometry and based on our perspective here. So something like right about there would be decent lighting for our subject. So she's side lit here. Okay, so that's about where we want to put her. Maybe right about there. Let's just say This is kind of important. You'll see why in just a second, why we want to figure out where we're going to put her. All right, let's just say we want her feet, they're under her dress, but we want her feet to be right about there. And that totally works for me. Okay, so her feet are going to be there. That's all we need to know for now, because we're going to do something else really cool in just a second. Okay, now we're going to figure out how big she needs to be. And to do this, we're going to use a vanishing point filter, and it's down here. But I'm going to show you guys, like, I'll explain what I'm about to do, and then I think you'll be able to kind of follow along better when we actually do it. So because I created a duplicate, I'm just going to create another duplicate of this layer. It's better be overcautious, and I'm in kind of a cautious mood right now, because this is hard what we're doing. It really is. I'm going to right click on this layer and just say apply layer mask, and that's just going to get rid of the layer mask. So now we just have this layer. Okay, I'm going to command click on this, and that's going to turn this layer into a selection. So command clicking, and I'm going to hit command C to copy it. You can also go to edit and down to copy. Okay, and now we're going to make this invisible and then deselect. So all I did was basically copy this, and now it's on my clipboard. So your clipboard's just something in your computer. It stores things temporarily. Okay, why are we doing all that stuff? So we copied our model, and now we need to figure out where she's going to be. Here's why we're doing all that. Let's go ahead and make a duplicate of our background layer. And we know where she's going to be standing, and she's on our clipboard. Those two things are important. We're going to build this entire scene. We're going to build it in a virtual environment, and then we're going to use that virtual environment to translate her throughout three-dimensional space and figure out her sizing through that virtual environment. And I know that sounds incredibly complex, but I'm going to make it very easy for you guys, so don't worry about it. Okay, so click on your background layer. Just remember, she has to be in your clipboard, so make sure you've selected that and hit Command C. Okay, we're going to click on our background copy layer now, and this has, I actually want this little dot to be visible in my background copy. So I'm going to click on the two of these, shift click the two of those, and hit Command E, and that's going to merge them together. E is in elephant. Okay, let's go ahead and go to filter, and I'm going to go down to vanishing point. Okay, and you can see what it did. Let's just full screen that. It loads my, there we go. It loads my layer that I had selected into the vanishing point filter. And if you guys have never used this filter before, don't feel bad, because I almost never use it either. But I discovered an amazing use for it tonight, and I'm going to share it with you guys, because that's how we roll. Okay, what we're going to do here is we're going to start off by this guy, this create plane tool. And it says what to tell you what to do. Click the four corners of perspective plane. And it's pretty cool. So let's start clicking some corners of our perspective plane. And don't worry if you don't get it incredibly right the first time. So we're going to start off here. Basically, you want to use geometry. If you have any geometry in your image, perfect. If you don't, then you could use even like trees. Like if there's a tree close to you and a tree far away and you think they're about the same size, you could use that. Like just get creative with it. And in this one, we do have some geometry. It's not incredibly apparent, but we do have some. So let's click on, there we go. I'm seeing what we have over here and some repeating shapes over there. So we're going to try to duplicate that. So let's click over there, and I'm going to drag down. Notice I'm not going straight down. That doesn't make sense. If I go straight down, it's going to try to load in the wrong perspective. I have to go at an angle, because you know this goes at an angle, just like that. All right, and we're going to click down here to the floor. So click there, and then we're going to bring this all the way back there, and click there, and up to there. Okay. Now, this basically creates a wall in space, which is cool. So all I did was click the 4 times. Now, once you have your wall, you can do a lot of stuff with it. You can make it taller, you can make it shorter, and this is your time. You can stretch it out to your vanishing point. Remember, we talked about a horizon earlier? That's basically where this is going, to our vanishing point. This is your time when you want to check your perspective with as much as you possibly can. And what I mean by that is, like, you know, if this building was built straight anyway, taking this up, like, is this line here, is it going to match up with this perspective here? And it looks pretty good. So we'll just say, yeah, sure, it matches up. All right, this is when you want to just kind of check as much as you possibly can to make sure this is right, because if you get this wrong, the entire reason for doing this is goes away. Okay, so that looks okay. Now, another check we can do is we're going to check it on this plane here. See how I have this line? Well, this line goes back to the same horizon, right? I mean, it disappears. It's co-planar. No, it's not coplanar. I don't know. It's parallel. Sorry, it's parallel. Like this line on the floor and this line here. If you looked at like a floor plan of this from above, they would be parallel lines. They're not because it's perspective, but so they go to the same vanishing point. There we go. All we have to do, you can either hit this guy again, or I'm going to hit Command instead. And holding down Command, it's going to change my cursor to the little grid of 4. Okay, so hold down Command, and I'm going to click here and drag out. There we go, and that's going to create a floor plane. Now, your floor plane, again, you want this. Can you see how it's starting to go in there, just like that? And the reason it's doing that is because it's calculating my perspective. And if I do, if I've calculated my perspective correctly, it will, in fact, look. Let's just zoom in, and I can use my hand and stuff like that. If I calculate my perspective correctly, this line on the wall will be perfect. And it's not. It's not exactly perfect, and it's okay because none of us are perfect, right? But we can correct this. So I'm going to just grab this corner, and I'm going to start moving this to the right. And now notice when I move this to the right, there we go. It kind of moves everything, right? All right, it's letting me move it up and down. I want to go to the right. Let's see if I can bring this in. All right, there we go. Now it's letting me go to the right. So it's kind of moving everything. And the reason it's doing that is because it's changing my perspective of my entire image at the same time. All right, and it seems to be snapping. I don't really want it to be snapping, but it's doing it anyway. All right, bring this in. Maybe I have to zoom in a bit more. I don't know. I just started using this tonight, guys. All right. Well, this is a lesson for getting it right the first time, huh? Only if you get it right. You know what I wanted to do? I'm going to hit delete on it, and we're just going to do it again because I don't know what it was doing there. It's supposed to let you change this subtly, go into the left and the right and stuff like that. All right, let's just try this back one. Maybe it'll be more cooperative. All right. It seems to be doing a little bit better. There we go. And as I move this around, I'm bringing it back to the wall each time. There we go. And we'll just stretch this out a little bit back. And you can see it's back on our wall. And this action that I'm taking is it's changing this left wall as well. It's correcting the perspective of this as I correct this perspective of the floor plane, which is very, very cool. And you should be able to do the same thing with the ceiling. Like if you wanted to hit Command and click on the ceiling and click this guy over here, you should be able to bring this back over here, and where it hits this wall, bonk, that's the exact same height. So right here is the same height as this wall is over there, which is very, very cool. So we're basically building in perspective and using it to calculate whatever's going on in here. All right, we'll hit delete again because we don't need that wall. And again, I'm just going to stretch this up. We just want to make sure this is correct. So like the bottom of these things here, we can just make sure that does this line follow the bottom of those things? And yeah, it does pretty well. So this is pretty good. I'm pretty happy with this perspective. Okay, now what do we do now that we have this perspective? Well, we can actually do something really amazing with this, and I'm so glad to have found it. Let's click this guy again and just bring this in a little bit shorter. What we can do is we can paste our whatever's on the clipboard into this. We can paste whatever's in our clipboard into this scene and move it around dynamically based on these planes, which is very cool. But before we do that, I'm going to figure out where I want my subject to be, and I can build her into my planes in a way that's going to do that. So let's go ahead and figure out where we want our subject to be. I think we want her to be right on our dot, right? This is where we pretty much said, yeah, let's have her be on that dot. Now, I'm going to figure out where this dot is. This floor plane might not even need it. I was correcting it a little bit, and it corrected this guy, because that's important. Okay, so our dot here on the floor matches up right about there with this line. So if our dot was back there, what I would want to do is bring this line in there to be about there too, because we're going to build our construction planes. Okay, so our dot matches right up about there. And actually, I probably didn't even need to draw what I did before, because this is a lot more accurate. So if I want her, in fact, see, this is cool. If I want her, in fact, to be pretty much, between those, maybe slightly on this side, that dot's not in the right place. It should actually be there. See, this is way more accurate than what I did earlier, which is very cool. So this really does. I mean, it should be accurate in real space, which is great. Okay, I'm going to hit my delete key, and that's going to get rid of that one again. So I've got this guy now, and what I'm going to do is build out a construction plane from this side. So I built the floor. We could build if I wanted to build a back wall, we could do that, and that should be accurate too. Command Z will undo it. I built a ceiling. Now let's build a front wall. And this is going to come across straight like this, which is perfect, and look good here. Now, we are getting a little bit of lean here, and I think mostly, there we go, let's just correct for that as well. I think mostly that's from distortion, but you can correct for all that sort of thing within this vanishing point, which is very cool. And you can see it changed my back wall just a little bit. So every little thing you can do to make sure you have all your lines looking how you want them to be. All right, and that might be a little bit too far back, so I'm gonna hit delete on that again. We'll just stretch it back out. My distortion should still be built into that. Okay, command, and now we're ready to rock. There we go. Okay, so what do we do now? Well, we're gonna click out here, and I'm gonna hit Command V. So Command C copied our image, and then now Command V is going to paste it into this. Okay, so we've pasted it into our image, and right now it's just floating up there like anything else in Photoshop, but we're going to change that in just a little bit. So I'm going to hit T to transform, and when you hit T, it brings up your transform controls. Let's just zoom out a little bit so you can see. There we go. And I'm going to hold down Shift, just the same as transforming in anything else. Hold down Shift, and it's just going to make it a bit smaller. I'm going to make this really small because it tends to load into these planes very large, and I'm not sure why. Okay, so we're going to click there, and now I'm going to bring it in to my plane. And literally, I mean, you just click and drag it into your plane, which is awesome. Now, remember earlier we said that door is a blessing. See, I can bring her over here, and she says, hey, I'm over here. All right. We said earlier this door is a blessing, and the reason is because it is. It allows us to size our subject, because people walk through doors, right? So I'd know probably about how big that door is supposed to be in relation to this person. So I'm going to make her even smaller. Let's hold down the Shift key and drag that a little bit smaller. There we go. And I'm going to put her in the door. There we go. And this is a tall door. This is one of those super big oversized doors, but I'm just going to say she's a really tall model because she looks tall. And again, we want to place her feet at, kind of like the entrance of the door. That looks good. And then, maybe say that she's about that tall. She's a pretty tall model. Okay, so that's how big she is in that door. And remember we talked about going away from the camera and things like that, how it makes people shorter and shorter and shorter and all that stuff. Well, now that we sized her to this door, I can move her around these construction planes at will, and it's going to size her correctly to wherever I move her. And this is where it all comes together and becomes incredibly cool. So, put her right there, and now she's the right size for that. Not only that, but it will also shrink her in scale. You can see it's not just making it smaller, it's actually changing the perspective of this. So if you had a picture frame and you wanted to put it on the wall, you just do this and you can put it on the wall. So she's still, she's the right size there. And now we can bring her around to this other construction plane, which is, right around the corner. So to do this, you want to just click on it and then drag it to the left, and she'll cross the corner there. There we go. So just go back and forth with this and now she's on this construction plane that's close to the camera. So you can see on the wall there, and now she's on the close to the camera. And I'm going to click on this and just kind of move it around. And sometimes you got to click on it a few times to it's like does weird stuff, especially if you click in a place that has both construction planes visible. But if I click like up here, it should let me control her just on this one now. All right, so I should be able to control her just on this construction plane, and we should be good to go. If I bring her back over there, she's back there. Okay, so bringing her here, and now we're just going to place her about where we want her to be. And right there looks pretty good. So she is placed where our dot is, and she has been dynamically resized from this actual room, from something we measured her against, to be the exact correct size right here, which is awesome. Not only that, guys, but she has also been changed in perspective. You can see she's leaning to the right a little bit, right? The whole thing is she's been pushed back a little bit. So the perspective of the photo that she is a part of has also changed to fit the perspective of this room. This is just the coolest thing in the world. So again, we'll just go back over here on the door just to show you guys, like, yep, this actually does work. See, she's way smaller there. Brought her back over here, and click there. And now we're going to stick her here on the floor. And, you know, this is not letting me go back and front to back in space. This is just a left and the right movement, because that's the plane that I built her on. So we'll stick her right about there. Perfect. And this is where she should be. So now that she's right there, this is the exact right place for her to be. She's the right size. She is the right perspective, and she's good to go, which is very, very, very cool. So I'm going to hit OK. And there we have it. It placed her on this layer in the exact right size. So there's no more guessing, right? We know this is exactly in, like, from here, this would be side lighting her, and she's exactly the right size, which is, I just, I figured this out a few hours ago, and I'm very excited about it. So I hope you guys are too, because it should make doing this a lot easier for you if you ever have to do it again, because it's very hard to do this. Imagine if you just brought someone in like this and you had to figure out exactly how tall they were supposed to be. Not incredibly easy. So if you want to use this image, you may. If you want to use this, you totally may. I'm going to actually just bring my own in. The reason, we made a copy and everything like that is I wanted her to be on this layer, but I'm going to use my own layer with a layer mask and everything like that, and I'm just going to resize this so it's about the same. So this is totally cool. All right, let's just lower the opacity here. All right, and I'm going to hit Command T, and we're just going to shrink this in until it's about the same size, or exactly the same size, rather. Okay, and hold down the Shift key. It got huge on me. There we go, and I'm trying to match it up. And you can see she got squished a little bit in the version that we just made. She got kind of pushed back. So you can do that as well. If you hold down the Command key, you can click any of these corners, or you can click this guy right here, and this is just going to give you a little bit of skewing going on there. And it squished her in a little bit like this as well, and I don't know, I don't want to do that as much, to be honest. Maybe just a little bit, but not as much as it did it according to this, however it figures it out, because I just don't want her to look squished, basically. But she is about the right size. I mean, height-wise, she's good, and floor placement is good there too. She could be a tiny bit bigger. If you guys do want to just go with whatever the perspective spits out, then totally use that. That's totally cool. All right, we're gonna hit Enter, and there we go. Let's go ahead and bring this back to 100% opacity, and we'll see. I don't think necessarily that we needed that like shift in perspective, but maybe we do. Like maybe this what doesn't look right, and maybe this looks better, but I don't think so. I like the one that's not as skewed a little bit better. It might not be technically as correct, but I think I like this a little bit better. But the only important thing that we got out of all that, well, the thing that we got out of all this, which is very, very important, is where she is standing exactly is the exact right size for our subject, which is very, very cool. And now we can be pretty confident in that. All right. Well, I'm ready, guys. I think this has been an awesome experience, and I'm ready to rock. So let's continue to do it. Oh, you know what? I take that back. You know what? I do take that back, guys. I'm sorry. I just do. I got to take it back. Here's the reason why. Okay, something that just occurred to me. When we were making that, layer, I was only able to bring the bottom of her dress in, right? I was only able to bring the bottom of her dress in, and that was not what I measured the door by. I measured the door by what I thought her feet would be, which her feet were there. So there's a slight difference there. So she's actually probably a tiny bit smaller than what she should be, because I was limited actually by my construction plane, and I hope that makes sense. So I will do it again very quickly. You probably want to see me do it again anyway. So let's just hit undo a few times. We're going to do this again very quickly, guys, because it's important that we get this right. Okay, we'll duplicate this again. We'll go to filter. We're going to go to vanishing point. I'll show you guys what I mean too. Your vanishing point is still in here, right? It's still in here, which is cool. I'm going to hit delete on this. See, what I was saying before is, remember when we brought this out here, I wasn't able to bring her as far down as I wanted because the dress was actually, it would have been cut off. So that's not what we wanted. So to counteract that, either we can just cut the dress off a little bit, or I can bring the floor down a little bit too. And then that should do the same thing. All right. No, you know what? I'm just going to cut the dress off a little bit. I don't feel comfortable bringing the floor down. I don't think that's the right thing to do. Okay, so let's hit Command V again. It's still in our clipboard. Like, we really don't have to do a lot. T for the transform. We'll just bring this really small because it likes to get in here, kind of big. And this way, we'll just do the bottom of the dress. See, I scaled her from like here, and what I want to do is bottom of the dress instead. Okay. It's just kind of important that we get this right. And I'm still guessing how tall she would be in this door, so it's probably is not going to make the biggest difference in the world, but I just want to make sure that, we're doing bottom of the dress to bottom of the dress, not bottom of the dress to middle of the dress kind of thing. All right. There we go. And we're going to hit OK. So you can see it didn't really take that long to just do that again. All right. And we're going to scale this again. Cool. I only developed this technique tonight, guys. I'm not perfect. There we go. But when I make mistakes, I really do try to correct them, because it's, it doesn't help you guys if I just make a mistake and then, say like, oh, I don't make any mistakes. Like, that's not going to help you guys out, right? So that's why I admit when I make my mistakes and I correct them. Let's go ahead and delete my background copy layer and bring this all the way up to an opacity of 100. And there we go. So she's the right size. So she's the right size. She's lit by our light, and we're ready to keep going, guys. This is very, very cool. I hope you guys are enjoying this so far. Because really, sizing her without doing all that would have been pretty tough. Okay, the next thing I want to do is figure out about my light levels and about how light or dark and all that stuff she should be. And it's kind of tough to do that when you're looking in color. So this is one of those times when I like to pump things into black and white and see how everything looks there. So I'm going to grab an adjustment layer, and we're just going to go up to black and white. There we go. There's a million different ways to make an image black and white. And just close that for now. We don't need to see it. Okay, so this is black and white. And really when I do these like check layers is what I call them. When I do this sort of stuff, guys, the only thing that I'm looking for is like, does it look right? That's the only thing I can see or I can't see is like, does it look right or does it not look right? That's it. And doing things like turning it black and white it'll help you see if it looks right in, just as far as your light value goes. And then if it does, you can move on to color. But, right now it doesn't look perfect in black and white, so we still need to work on this a little bit more. Let me just make a couple notes on here so you guys can see what I mean about it not really looking perfect. Things like the shadow on her arm, for instance, that's just a little bit too dark. Like, there's no reason why that shadow would be that dark, right? Because we're in like a pretty bright room here, right? It's, relatively bright. We get light bouncing around all the walls and things like that. That should be a little bit lighter. So should the shadow on this side of her face. This highlight on her face should be a little bit not as bright, or we should bring the brightness up of her dress, but her dress looks pretty okay. The reason is, we had the light source. It was relatively close to her face before, and then it, falls off in intensity as it gets down. But we've got these lights here, and, these are going to light the whole model up. So the light from here to here on her left side, that's got to be relatively even, and it's not right now. So we got to fix that as well. The other thing we're looking at is our shadow here. I mean, that's way, way too dark, right? Like these shadows on the floor just are not that dark. So we got to fix that as well. Okay, so that's the sort of thing we need to fix in looking at this image in black and white. Now, I've taken it a step further from the last time we talked, and I've developed a new technique, and I'm going to show you guys that too tonight. And that's going to show you guys a different way to check this. So this is just checking if it looks good in black and white. Now I have a way of letting you guys see whether it looks good in black and white, but using our different color channels. Now I'm just going to let you guys know what I'm about to show you guys is complex. Like, this is pretty hard stuff. And, so you can watch this over and over again, and it's going to really help you guys. And this is some very, very cool stuff, but it is hard. So like, if you're not 100% on it, like the first go round, like don't feel bad. Don't beat yourself up, because it's legit hard stuff. But basically what we're going to do is I'm going to look at my different color channels and analyze my image based on different color channels, and then alter this layer based on what I see on my different color channels. Okay, so we have to take this out of black and white real quick and look at our channels. So let's click on these channels. We're going to start off by clicking on RGB, and then you click on red, green, and blue, and you can see what they look like each. And the only thing you guys are looking for here is, does it look good like this? Like, does it look good or does it not look good? Like, that's the only thing you're looking for. And this is just showing you your different color channels, and it's showing you in a way that you can see everything. So, for instance, the red channel, what I can see here is there's a bit too much red on her face right there, or if it's a little bit too bright. So that just doesn't look right, and the shadows and everything like that. But everything else looks okay. The green channel, that looks okay for the most part. So that means that, whatever's going on our green channel with our greens, we probably don't really have to mess with them that much. Now let's look at our blue channel. And our blue channel is just like full of problems, right? It just doesn't look really that good at all. Like, the blue channel just, it's not doing what we want. The shadows, see how much, like, look at the red channel. See how much brighter the shadows in the background are in the green channel, and the blue channel, look how dark those shadows are in the background, right? But the shadows on her didn't really change. So that means that there's too much blue in her. Basically, this is what that means. So we're clicking on the blue channel. Anything that's dark means there's not a lot of blue in it. And she didn't really get darker, but everything else did. So it means in order for her to match the background, she needs less blue. Okay, this is like a very technical way to do it, and if you guys are not comfortable with this method, like, don't feel like you have to use it. If you can just look at her and tell that she needs less blue, awesome. That's totally cool. You don't need to do this stuff, and you have a better eye than I do. But personally, I find this stuff to help out, because I can't look at this and be like, oh, she needs 5% less blue. Some people can do that, but I can't. So this is a way to help you check that out. So let's see what we can do. On this layer, we're going to use clipping masks and curves adjustment layers a lot today, because they really help you out. So let's grab an adjustment layer. I'm going to go up here to curves, and we're going to clip this curves adjustment to our layer of the girl, because we only want it to affect the girl, right? So to clip, you can just right click and go to create clipping mask. Okay, cool. Now, let's go back into our blue channel. RGB first, then click on red, green, and then we're going to go down to blue. So our blue channel is the one that doesn't look right? Like the shadows need to be a bit darker. So here, this is our adjustment layer. Let's go back to our blue channel. We're looking at our channels right now, but it's still active here on my curves, okay? In our blue channel, we just need the darks to be a little bit darker. Now, curves work basically input and output levels. You can, click this, make the lights, darks lighter, darks darker. You can make your lights darker, and you make your lights lighter. So this is basically how they work. And what you want to make, basically what we're looking to do here is make this look good in this range. So the shadows need to be a little bit darker, right, to kind of match what's going on here. Maybe you can adjust your input and output if you want, or you can just kind of pull this slider down. And if you really want to, let's just bring this back here. If you really like having control and you don't like graphs, which is how I feel a lot of the time, you can just grab this little hand tool and you can just click like in your shadows and just kind of drag down. There we go. And I'm doing this in a way that's, it's grabbing my shadows and dragging those down, and I'm just kind of trying to make her look better. Like she's not going to look perfect here because we haven't done a whole lot of work on the image, but I'm just trying to make her look better. And now let's go into our green channel and our red channel. Okay, our red channel, let's go over here and then we'll match it with our red channel on our curves adjustment layer. And remember, we said the highlights were just a little too bright, right? So we're going to click on our highlights here, and I'm just going to drag these down just a little bit. All right, so the red channel and then is the green channel. The green channel looks pretty good to me. And the blue channel definitely looks like it matches a little bit more. Maybe we went a little bit too far with that. All right, but it definitely did need to be darker. Okay, so all this is in black and white, and you're like, Aaron, why are you adjusting color when you're in black and white? Like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. But it's kind of cool because when we turn this back into color, it should actually look decent. I'm not guaranteeing that it will, but it should look not incredibly horrible. And so let's see what it looks like back in color. There we go. Okay, so it has gotten rid of our it has gotten rid of our blues, which looks pretty good, but it is way too green now, right? Like it's totally way too green. And is that because of the cyans? Did I pump down the reds? Okay, I'll tell you guys why that doesn't look good right now. Okay, the reason why that didn't look good is because my lights are just way too bright here, right? And they're showing up mostly in the red channel. Like it shows up that my lights are way too light here. So I tried to fix it in my red channel. The problem wasn't in the red channel. It was just showing. The problem is that they're just too light. So adjusting the red channel that's not really what we wanted to do. So let me just drag that down. Instead, maybe I can just click on our most bright point and kind of drag that down a little bit. Okay. Might be a case when we need to just use RGB, which is just luminosity. All right, and that should look a lot better. There we go. Cool, and it does look a lot better. So what we did is we looked at the relative brightness between our red, green, and blue channels and colored our image based on those things. There we go, and this is off to a pretty good start as far as looking decent as in our image. Yeah, I think we're going to leave our red channel alone, to be honest. We'll mess with this in a different way, just using RGB, because I think we actually need a little bit more reds here, especially in the shadows. All right, but that's definitely a good start. You can see that just adjusting our blues really did help us out quite a bit. Okay. We're going to keep going with this because I like doing these sort of things in layers instead of just like trying to get it all right in one go. I like doing it in layers. I feel like it gives you a lot more control. So we're going to make another one of these guys. Curves adjustment layers. You can also clip by hitting Option Command G, and that'll work as well. Okay, let's click on the reds because I need more reds in my shadow. I can just see that. Like I don't know if this method's going to work for allowing me to see that I need more red in my shadows. I don't really see that if you guys do, like, it helped a lot on the blues. You could see that it was too bright before, but I don't really see it as well in the reds. Maybe just here. So let's click on this. Let's see if I can see what I'm doing here in the red channel. All right, cool. Let's see how that looks. I don't know. We're gonna get out of here. Mostly that helped us with the blues. All right, and bringing some red into my shadows. That definitely helped out. Okay, and that's just something that I kind of looked at everything and I could see that. But I have another way. If you guys didn't see that, it needed a little bit more red, because I don't blame you. Like, that's not something that I feel that you need to be able to see. There's a great way that I'm going to show you guys how to check that as well. So the way to check whether something is, you know, slightly the wrong hue or things like that, there are a couple great ways. The first way is to make a check adjustment layer. Well, actually, I'm going to send this to you guys. I'll send it to you in this tutorial. Why not? Because I made an action out of it. We're going to go to my actions, and I'll just load in this action that I call check. Full check, and you just hit play, and then it just does it. Great. Let's close that out. So these are my check layers, and I'll send you guys this action. It'll just turn all these, you know, it'll give you all these layers when you hit play. We're going to turn this guy on here. That's our luminosity adjustment layer. And the luminosity adjustment layer basically takes away all of your lights and darks. So what we're looking at right now is just your hues. You can see the different hues, and it's your saturations. So I know it's pretty complex, guys. So, you know, if you're like, what is he talking about? It's just a way to be able to see, like, do we need more red is basically, you know, what we can see here. It takes away your lights and darks, so you don't get distracted by that. Just like having that black and white layer took away your colors to not distract you with colors, this takes away your luminosity, so you only see your hues and your saturations. Now, if you only wanted to see your saturations, you make it all the same hue. And what you see now is only saturations, which is also very cool. The next thing I want to show you guys is this layer turned on to luminosity. I'm going to now bring the hue saturation layer up. Okay, and now this is what's going to help us. So you should be able to see relatively well now that this dress is just not really that right. And I know you're thinking like, oh, it's white, it needs to be white. But whenever someone is in an environment, the colors and the light and things like that, they bounce around and they affect, you know, the colors of the person. So the colors in the dress need to reflect whatever's in this environment. They don't need to be the exact same color, but they need to be, you know, they need to have some of that color in them. So that's when making like a curves adjustment layer like this, doing that is going to help out a little bit. So we can bring this curves adjustment layer visible, and you can see it's closer to the environment. It still has a little bit too much, maybe blue or something. It needs to match to this color a little bit more. So we can go back into our curves adjustment layer, and let's just grab our blue channel, and I can click here and drag down, bring in some yellows and things like that into our blues. All right, and what we're looking for here is just having it match the hue just a little bit better. So like that doesn't really match, and that matches quite a bit better. So it doesn't have to be perfect, guys. Like really, it's not the test of like who can make this the most amazingly perfect thing ever. You just want it to match relatively close. Okay, and these layers, they're only to help you see things. Like that's the only reason these exist. Is like, can you know, if you can see that it looks better or worse using these layers. That's why that's there. Okay, cool. And let's see, maybe I need a little bit more green because I can see the difference in green there too. There we go. And let's turn that back on. So we can see the difference here, like this, you know, well, definitely before we did any of this, you can really see that it doesn't look good, right? Like that doesn't look anything like the colors around the room. Now it's looking a little bit better, and now we're looking even better. Okay, so I can be pretty confident when I turn all this weirdness off that I'm looking at, that it's going to look quite a bit better. And it does, right? And that's great. So we're going from that to that. And that's a pretty big step, guys. That's a good job. So if you guys stayed with me the entire job, or the entire time, give yourselves a pat on the back. So these guys just exaggerate your problems and make it easier to fix them. You know, it's like, it's hard to know looking at this that you need like 2% more green and like 3% less blue. But if you exaggerate everything, you can start to see it a little bit better. Okay, cool. So our colors are looking pretty good. Like she actually is starting to look like she's in this environment, which is great, right? She's reflecting the colors that are in the environment. That's an important thing. It's an important thing to do. Okay, now the next thing I want to check here is our saturations. So to do that, what we're going to do is I have my hue layer. Let's see, this guy turns on hue. And what this does is it changes everything to the same hue. And that means that, you know, we're no longer looking at our, you know, the difference in hues. The only thing we see now is the difference in lights and darks and the difference in saturations. So if something looks out of place, like this guy, it basically just says that's very, very saturated. Okay, now if I take away the difference in lights and darks with this layer, this is my luminosity layer, then literally the only thing that I see here is my, the only thing that I see here are my saturations. This is just my relative saturations in my image, which is also very cool. So if I'm seeing just my saturations in my image, I know now that I have a little bit of work to do because my saturation has become inverted, which if you guys are, you know, if you're following me up until this point, hopefully you're continuing to follow me. This is, yeah, we said earlier, this is a hard thing to do, but you know, don't worry, I'm guiding you through it. And this is the best guide you'll find on the internet on how to do this, I promise. Okay, our saturations are inverted. Basically, what I mean by that is as you go closer to a light source on your subject, your skin or whatever it is should be more saturated. And in this case, it's actually less saturated. Okay, so we can see that because the highlights, basically, does this look weird? Does she look weird? And if the answer is yes, then something's wrong, right? Like, does she look weird? Yes. So something's wrong. And in this case, the only thing that we can see is saturation, right? Because we took away all of our hues. They're all the same now, and our lightness is all the same. So the only thing we're looking at is saturation. And if this looks wrong, then the saturation's wrong. Okay. But we can fix that too. So we're going to go above our curves adjustment layer. I'm going to grab an adjustment layer, and we're going to go up to our hue saturation. All right, and we're going to clip this as well, Option-Command-G. Now, you guys are going to see in just 1 second that it's going to look way, way better. And it's not right just yet, but it is going to look way better. Okay, and the reason is because I'm going to colorize this entire image. And when I hit colorize, this is going to just pop into something that actually looks good. So let's hit colorize, and we're going to bring up our saturation, and you can see it looks a lot more normal. Let's just make this invisible and then visible again. It looks a lot more normal. There we go. And we can change our hue and things like that to whatever. It really doesn't matter at this point what our hues are. But we're going to bring our saturation up. And this is it's bringing your saturation up in your highlights. Okay, cool. So now how do we use this in a way that's actually beneficial to us? I can't really see what I'm doing here. So this has colored everything, including, you know, my highlights and shadows and everything like that. I only want this to color my highlights, right? I want my highlights to just have a little bit more saturation in them. So I'm going to double click on this hue saturation adjustment layer, and I'm going to tell this, I'm going to hold the Alt option and tell it not to be visible where my underlying layer is darker. Okay, and now we can hit OK, and it's only going to be visible in my highlights. So my highlights are now getting saturated and they're getting colorized. Okay. Well, they're the wrong color, right? So we need to change that by, I don't want to see my saturations anymore, right? I just want to see my hues. So let's turn this guy on. Sorry, there's a combination of these ones. Okay, if you just want to see your hue, click on luminosity. And if you don't want to see your saturation, do that one. No, okay. Trying to use my brain here, guys. Not always the best at that. There we go. This is what we want. Okay, so we're bringing it back to where it looks good here. And And if we bring both of those the same, it should start to look a little bit better as well. All right, perfect. So now what I want to do is just make these checks invisible. All right, we need to lower down our saturation quite a bit, obviously, because it doesn't look anywhere near good. And I need to change my hue just a little bit. There we go. And we're going to bring the opacity down quite a bit. Okay, cool. And it's a subtle change, but it's going to help it make it look like it's reflecting the light from the left a little bit better. Great. You could probably skip that step. I think it did. You can see here in the dress, like it did do something, but if that was confusing and you didn't like that step, I kind of didn't like that step, to be honest. It did do something, but I don't know if it did enough of something to be worth your time. Okay, let's move on from there. How's that, guys? Looking good. So we're definitely looking good as far as our colors go. Let's go ahead and make those invisible, and we'll make them visible once more. Our light levels, again, let's just look at this in black and white. Like, are the general light levels how we want them to be in this image? And I still think they're a little bit off. So what I'd like to do is just bring in a, we'll do a curves adjustment layer again. And I'm going to hit Option Command G to clip that again. And I want my shadows to just be a little bit brighter. So we're going to use RGB here, and I'm just going to grab my shadows and make them just a little bit brighter. There we go. And we can make our highlights a little bit darker if we need to. And I actually don't want to make my highlights darker on the entire image. So I'm going to probably do this in 2 steps. I made my shadows a bit brighter, which I feel like helped out a bit, and maybe we'll just lower the opacity a little bit. But I want my highlights to be a little bit darker here, but not necessarily on the dress. See, like the dress, especially in this area, is starting to look kind of good. So I don't really want to mess with that area. I think we just need to mess with the face. So let's put black back off and not black and white anymore. Perfect. And if this does mess with your colors too much, you can move this below your layers where you colored, your curves adjustment layers. Remember how we colored with these layers? This guy, if you put it below, it won't mess up your colors as much, basically. So we're going to do that. Oh, I lowered the opacity on the wrong one. My bad. There we go. Lower the opacity on this just a little bit more. All right, perfect. So now if we want our lights to be a little bit darker here in my highlights, I'm going to grab my adjustment layer. We're going to do curves again, Option Command G to clip that again, and we're going to make the highlights here just a little bit darker. So we're going to go RGB. I'm going to click here because this is my highlights and just bring our highlights down a little bit. Now, you guys are going to see, like, if I bring my highlights down, it loses its saturation too. You can try just changing your brush to luminosity, or your curve adjustment, and this one should also be on luminosity. I forgot about luminosity till right now, so I'm glad I remembered. Okay, if you change your curves adjustment mode, see on normal it's desaturating. Here on luminosity, it should not desaturate. So that's what you want to do, is put it on luminosity. I'm glad I remembered about that. Okay, because I'm trying to make my brights just a little bit darker. There we go. And if you don't put it on luminosity, it tends to grayscale it out. Okay, now I only want this to really affect my lights. So I'm going to double click here, and I'm going to tell this to not be visible when my underlying layer is darker this time. So Alt or Option, click and drag from left to the right and hit OK. So now this is only affecting my highlights, just making them a tiny bit darker. And I'm going to hit Command I on this layer mask. So click on your layer mask and hit Command I, and that's going to invert your layer mask. Then I'm going to use my brush and just paint it back here in the highlights, especially around the face area. So we're going to grab my brush tool. I'm going to right click, and I'll send you guys this brush too. It's just a regular soft brush. This is the brush I use for just about everything now. And we're going to paint with white here at about a 20% flow, maybe 10% flow. And this is just going to painting white on a layer mask, you guys know, makes something visible. So I'm just painting this a little bit more visible there, which is, you know, bringing down my highlights just a little bit. Perfect. All right, guys. Well, we're definitely looking better. Looking a lot better than we were before. All right, I think we still need a little bit of red in our shadows here. So you can do this in a couple different ways. If you guys don't like these curves adjustment layers, you can do this in different ways, but I think the curves really do work well. Like that's, you know, it's kind of what I prefer, but I'll show you guys one other way to do this as well. If you want to make a new layer and go ahead and clip it, what I'm going to do is grab this color that's, you know, here in our bricks, and I'm going to just paint on our dress. So grabbing the color that's on the bricks, we're just going to paint on the dress, and this is going to get a little bit more of that color basically on our model. Okay, we're going to change this layer blend mode from normal to soft light. All right, I generally don't like using color because it tends to like flatten everything out, right? So color for me really doesn't work right, and soft light doesn't usually work as well if you have it be visible everywhere. So it's going to, this color is going to be picking up more in the shadows than it will in the highlights. So I'm going to double click on this layer, and I'm going to tell this not to be visible where my highlights are, holding Alt Option and clicking there, dragging from the right to the left. There we go. I'm just kind of playing with that a little bit to get our color just a little bit better. So that's basically just reflecting the color. And the reason it's more visible in the shadows than the highlights is the highlights are, you know, the highlights are being hit by these kind of lights and things like that. And the color collects in the folds a little bit more. It just, I don't know, the way light works, I guess. But you don't have like, you have things like specular reflections in the highlights of the dress, and those, you don't actually see the color of the dress, you see the reflection of the light instead of the color of the dress. So this is that. Okay, cool. So we're definitely looking pretty good. Our colors look great, guys. Well, the next thing I want to work on is our shadows. And let's just go ahead and put this in black and white again to see what our shadows look like. But I think, you know, like in black and white, we're definitely looking pretty good. Like from where we started, I'm proud, guys. I think we did an awesome job. So we're going to use this idea, I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. We're going to use the shadows to create, we're going to use the shadows that we see here to create the shadows that we're going to see on her dress. Now, this is actually a pretty tough part. And the reason is because the shadows contain details different from the highlights, and the shadows also have colors, and shadows are pretty tough. They really are. So we're going to be spending the next bit on the shadows, and for that I'm going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to tackle the shadow. It's going to be awesome.